Welcome to part 2 of my top 10 favorite FMA characters. Number 5, Winry Bell from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. I'm going to be very honest here and say it flat out right now of why Winry 2003 did not make it. I think the 2003 had either more of presence or was more developed, or both. Now, the Winry of this series is pretty much the same Winry from the 2003, but with some major differences, including how her parents died and who killed them. Trust me, when she finds out who it is, it creates one of what I consider the darkest episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And it shows how much Winry has lost and how a vicious cycle of revenge solves nothing. Now, onto Winry's character though. She is, in times, very tsundere-like, but what separates her, I think, from some tsundere is that, one, she was a likable character even without the tsundere tendencies. And while she could be very, aggressive, she genuinely cared about both the Elric brothers. Especially Edward, if you know what I mean. But anyway, why I like her is because of her kinder nature, and because after episode 22 she really develops as a character, and we learn very much about her. And I actually really like her fate at the end of Brotherhood. But I think that's enough for this. On to the next one. Number 4, Colonel Roy Mustang. Now, I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to say this right now. Both series get this one. And it's because of how opposite the two are. Whereas the 2003 version is a lot more guilt-ridden and admittedly more tragic and sad, the Brotherhood version, kind of like Scar, is a little more on the rage fueled and much more determined, and yeah, let's get into that later. But first, I do think both Roys are pretty good. I think they do very good job with him, and they make him out to be, he really was a good guy, and he still is, but he's a lot more cynical of the world. In short, he's more or less like the adult version of what Edward Elric might be. Now, I gotta be honest here too, he's got the badass factor working with him. The guy is damn awesome. But I will say right now, one thing that holds him back is just that there are some things that I think they could have done better with him, but I don't really know how. However, I will say this right now, he gives one of my least favorite characters in Brotherhood some well-deserved punishment. And you'll know who it is very soon. But anyway, currently he is my number 4. On to the next one. Number 3, Greed from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Before any of you say, oh, but what about the 2003 version? What about the 2003 version? What about the Chris Patton version? I never said I didn't like the Chris Patton version. I actually really like that Greed too. It's just, I think that the Brotherhood version had one trump card. His ultimate fate. But again, later on that. Greed is my favorite villain in Fullmetal Alchemist. Period. Like Kimberly, he is such an ass, but for me personally, I find Greed quite the fun person to watch because He's not aligned with the rest of the homunculi, but he's more so in league with himself. He's only looking out for number one, and he wants everything. He's greed. And you know what? I actually really like him for that. I like the fact that he's not with the villains technically, and he's just doing his own thing. So I really do enjoy Greed more than that. But one thing I really also like about Greed is episode 62 of Brotherhood. It's admitted that Greed only really wanted friends, and he could be, I think, quite lonely. And it says so much about his character even early on when he had his gang, even during the Chris Patton version. And I'll say this right now, as the Chris Patton version, he was badass. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about Greed. As my favorite villain of FMA, on to the next one. Number 2, von Hohenheim from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Now, I'm going to say this right now. I don't mind the 2003 version. And I thought he was generally at times likable and everything, but I think everything that was good about him was done so much better in Brotherhood, and so much more tragically. Originally, he started out as a slave, worked his way up to becoming an alchemist, became immortal, and is cursed with it. He also is part of the reason why Ed is the way he is. Unfortunately, he left to try and stop Father, but the main villain of Brotherhood, but ultimately had to leave his children behind in order to do so. Now, one thing I think a lot of people say is they don't like von Hohenheim at first. And you know what? It's quite understandable why. He never cracks a smile, and he really seems like one of those people that just seem like, hey, you abandoned your kid. But as you really get to know him, you get to see much more of the guilt behind it, and how much he truly loves his family. Something I think that the 2003 version was really missing. He loved Trisha, he loved Ed, and he loved Al. And you can really get a sense of that in 2009 in the Brotherhood version. And I really like that. He's doing this so that they don't have to suffer from his own mistakes. And actually, I'll be honest, he has one of my favorite scenes in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood with the finale of episode 63. The first and last time we ever see him smile. And the part I mentioned in my top 20 favorite anime countdown. So, I'll be honest, I have a personal attachment to von Hohenheim. But he's not number 1. And I'm pretty sure if you know FMA, you'll probably know who my favorite character is, but I might as well say which one is my number 1 anyways. So, let's go to that. And my number 1 favorite FMA character is Edward Elric from both series. Yes, I like Ed in both series equally. First up, I can relate in some ways to Edward Elric and can really understand why he's doing everything he is. Also, I'm going to be very honest here, I think both series develop him fairly well. He's cynical, yes, but there's a hope for them, and he's genuinely kind. And I really just enjoy watching his adventures with Al, and just how much heartbreak and heartwarming they have to go through in the entirety of FMA. And I'll be honest, I like them both because they're both so similar yet so different in little ways. And truth be told, I at one point thought that Edward Elric was my favorite anime character and still remains one of my top characters. Although I will admit that now belongs to Luge v Britannia. But anyways, he still remains one of my favorite anime characters, and I think he will remain one of my absolute favorite anime characters, and he is my personal favorite FMA character ever. Alright, this has been Star 6 Wars 1, and I'll see you in the next part of FMA month, my Full Metal Alchemist 2003 review. See you guys then.